Two ginormous changes are coming to Hearthstone Mercenaries that you need to know about because this is going to drastically change the way PvP is working. And I know a lot of you are tired of seeing Karen and Diablo, and this is probably going to fix that. Let's get into it.
I'm a doctor!
Before we get into what the changes are, if you enjoy Hearthstone Mercenaries, make sure you like this video and subscribe. I want to be your Hearthstone Mercenaries guy. Now, this is a really important change. You probably play a lot of PvP, and you probably see often Karen and Diablo as the end on their bench for a lot of team comps, and it's because Karen is quite good in his current role of what he does of speed manipulation. And there's also Blink Fox, which is kind of being used to counter Diablo because 10th Tail is kind of bugged right now, where sometimes the ability should be not 0, but it is 0, and so on and so forth. But Paul, who is the lead game designer for Hearthstone Mercenaries, goes as Kaiser on the Discord, posted this this morning, the day of the patch. I mentioned this elsewhere, but I'll say this here. In the first hotfix patch after tomorrow's patch, we're fixing Karen so it doesn't act after reincarnation. And on top of this, they're also trying to fix Blink Fox speed for stacking. Now, I don't know how many guys are playing PvP right now, but both of these are not working as intended. And let's kind of explain what this is and what this actually means for PvP, because it's a very big deal. Right now for Karen, if you did not know, the way reincarnation works is that if you kill Karen before reincarnation procs, you actually get to still use your ability after, which does not make a whole lot of sense for the wording, because technically Karen dies, which means their ability should not be actually queued up anymore. And what this actually means is that even if you focus Karen, but you have not procced the reincarnation, they still get to play Earth Stomp, which is partially one of the reasons why Diablo is so good, because you can't actually focus Karen, because why would you focus them if they're just going to get their ability off anyways? And then that makes Diablo just a better character because of the speed manipulation that they don't really have to worry about, because focusing Karen does literally nothing. Now, changing Karen's reincarnation has a lot to do on the PvP metagame, because no longer will Karen be this character that can just sit there idly by and not worry about its life, because, you know, it just can't always get the ability off anymore. Now, the biggest thing about this is that making Karen's, I guess, reincarnation work as intended, I wouldn't even count this as a nerf. It just should have been like this from the beginning. Drastically changes the landscape of the PvP metagame, because of the fact that Diablo will probably not be as good anymore because reincarnation is getting nerfed. Now, will Karen still see play after this? 100%. Right now, Karen is probably like a tier S mercenary, but Karen will probably go down to about a tier A to a high B because of just the speed manipulation that Karen does provide. Now, this is no longer going to be tier S. Maybe you don't even run reincarnation anymore, but I think you still do. But generally speaking, I'm very excited for this change because I'm kind of tired of seeing Karen and Diablo in every comp. But that's not the only change we are getting. We're getting one for Blink Fox. Currently right now, Blink Fox is also bugged. And the way that Blink Fox bugged is super weird, and it's very inconsistent. It's not like Karen's bug, which is just an interaction that needs to be fixed. Blink Fox's is super wonky, and it's due to 10th Tail and Mind Thief. So Mind Thief reads, this is always a copy of the last enemy ability played last turn. It has no cooldown and is 5 speed faster. So this is a random ability that your opponent cast last turn. But if you add 10th Tail, it will always be the last ability your opponent cast last turn, and it has no cooldown. So that's awesome, whatever. But this doesn't mention that the speed will always be 0. And I'll give you a really prime example. And if you did not know, this is a little bit of a tidbit information for Blink Fox. 10th Tail will always give you the last ability your opponent played on the very first turn when you bring Blink Fox out. And then once Blink Fox is actually in the battlefield, then the Mind Thief will start copying the last ability your opponent played the previous turn. But it's really wonky. It should only be 5 speed faster, right? Based on the wording here between 10th Tail and Mind Thief. But what's actually happening, and I'll give you a really prime example because I see it a lot, is with Tavish. If Tavish is the last one to go, which is quite literally always the case because his speed is so slow on turn 1 with the 7th, Blink Fox's first ability when she comes out with 10th Tail and Mind Thief is 0 speed. But Blink Fox's ability says 5 speed lower. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Even sometimes with the speed manipulation procs from Karen, the slowdown doesn't affect it, but sometimes it does. Sometimes Varden affects it, but sometimes it doesn't. It's just super wonky right now, and this is clearly not working as intended, and having a fix for this would be great. Now, After this is fixed, is Blink Fox bad? No. Is Blink Fox worse? Yeah, probably, because it's actually working as intended and it's not just always going to be 0 speed. Is that a negative for Blink Fox? For sure. But she'll still be okay. She'll go from probably like a high tier A to probably a tier B and just used to counter like late game effects, but she'll still have her place in the meta game. I do want to mention this because I feel like a lot of people are going to be asking the question, is this a nerf or not? And none of these are a nerf, actually. These are both just fixing a bug in an interaction that should have been like this from the very beginning of the game. So don't expect them to be like giving refunds for anything. This is literally how it was supposed to be from the beginning of Hearthstone Mercenaries. And I, for one, am very glad that this is happening because these inconsistencies, or I should say the consistent bug as well for Karen, is kind of annoying. And I think this will open up the game entirely now because Karen won't be this S tier character. The thing I want to mention here is that Paul says this will be the first hotfix patch after tomorrow's patch. So this is not coming today with the pirates in the Murlocs for Mercenaries. This will be coming a patch after. Now, considering that says a hotfix patch, it shouldn't be like an average cycle of 2 to 3 weeks for like Hearthstone updates, for content updates at least. It will be something probably much sooner. So I would imagine that this is going to be probably end of this week, early next week for Karen. I'm hoping. The earlier this gets done, the more willing people will be to try other stuff besides Karen and Diablo, which means the game is about to get a whole lot more exciting for your average player. I also do want to mention, should you level up Karen and Blink Fox still? Karen, absolutely. Karen will still be very strong after this interaction is fixed. Doesn't make Karen a horrible character, but there's more counterplay to what he has. Blink Fox, I would still recommend leveling up as well because there will be a time where she is very strong. But for the time being, she's not as urgent as just Karen is in general. So level up Karen. I would still think Blink Fox is fine, but not as much of a necessity. So there you go. So I want to mention which characters I think will be pretty good after this interaction is changed, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious what characters they should be leveling up. And the first one on my mind is Vol'jin. Vol'jin is very strong at the moment, and he will only get better once Karen is nerfed. So make sure you have Vol'jin leveled up. On top of this, I would highly recommend you start leveling up Anduin and Velen, just because without that late game finisher, Anduin looks really good. But on top of this, and I would highly recommend it, start leveling up the beast comp. I'm talking King Crush, I'm talking King Mukla, and I'm talking Rexar. The reason for this is because with the change to Karen and like indirectly changing Diablo to not be as strong because Karen gets weaker, there will probably be more casters on the battlefield, which, if you did not know, the beast synergy absolutely destroys them. Anyways, that's going to be it for me for this video. I hope this was helpful and you guys learned a couple things. And as always, if you liked it, subscribe and you look fantastic.